Is Kokomi really that useless, just like in her story quest? Well, that we're gonna find out today in today's pre-release analysis. Before we start, Leaks is currently getting shut down by MiHoYo. This might be the last leak we ever seen from Honey Hunter, and because of that, this might be the very last pre-release analysis. And if Honey Hunter gets shut down, at least we still have KOKOMI to find all the good information like talent or whatever they do. And what's even better is you can browse the KOKOMI website on today's sponsors, Opera GX. Opera GX is the world's first gaming browser with a tons of solution for your gaming problem, like CPU limiter or RAM limiter. Notice how browser like Chrome hog all your resources like your RAM when you're playing games like Genshin Impact, or maybe when you're streaming like I am. Like, oh my goodness, look at my Genshin Impact frames when I'm streaming and I have a lot of tabs open. But you still need to open that tab because you need to look up the Robushi handguard farming route, or simply turn on the CPU limiter and the RAM limiter, or maybe even look at which tab using a lot of RAM and just kill it. Now you can enjoy gaming in peace, knowing that your browsers won't be the cause of you lagging anymore. The Opera GX browsers also have tons of included features for gamers, such as built-in ad blocker, built-in VPN, or my absolutely favorite, dark mode. Make every single website automatically dark mode, whether that be Google, YouTube, or Twitch. So now my Twitch chat can stop complaining that I'm not using dark mode or I do not have ad blocker because all of those are built in. The Opera GX browser also include a tons of customization features such as this Genshin Impact wallpaper for Xiao, which is currently what you're seeing in the background right now. They also have a GX corner where you can see every single latest deal for the games, or you can just see what's available for free like Final Fantasy. Oh, and they have a mobile version as well, so you can easily sync your file across your devices. Switch to the #1 gaming browser, Opera GX, using the link in the description below. Disclaimer, this video and video on this channel focus on free crafting and meta crafting. If you are a casual player, this will most likely not apply to you. You can roll for any character you like because content on here is about pushing endgame of Genshin Impact, so if you don't care, you just don't care. More importantly, this video contains leaked data and it might not fully represent the final product, so please take it with a grain of salt. The primary goal of pre-release analysis are to downplay character so that you do not FOMO pull for them on day one and properly wait for testing and a proper conclusion before rolling. With that being said, here on the screen you can see my 4-star KOKOMI that we're gonna use today. Now, I feel like there's a big train right now saying how KOKOMI is bad, KOKOMI is so useless, and I don't think that's necessarily true. Even though this video is meant to talk about character potential issues and downplay them, I think it's just as important to correct expectation. Right now, we have this giant idea that KOKOMI is just like Chi-Chi, aka completely useless and completely unplayable, and I don't think that's true at all. A lot of people think that she is useless and unplayable just because she is a healer and she doesn't have crit rate. I feel like there's a giant train not going on around and saying KOKOMI is completely useless because she is a healer and she doesn't have crit. But people are just saying it to say it. They don't properly understand what it actually means for KOKOMI and don't properly understand why that is good or why that is bad. For example, KOKOMI can at least carry the Dragon Slayer book, unlike Chi-Chi. What that means is KOKOMI might still see some play just because the book is so insane that it will single-handedly carry KOKOMI. And you will notice that this book also scales with HP%, which is exactly what KOKOMI used, right? So you can put this book on KOKOMI and it fit perfectly well on KOKOMI. KOKOMI normal attack is very similar to other colorless users such as Barbara. They're auto-targeted and they're purely only single target. What that means is KOKOMI charge attack also have a very big 50 stamina cost, and you'll most likely be unable to actually use her charge attack in a real battle because it simply costs too much stamina and it's too long to come out. Once again, comparing Barbara auto attack to like something like Childe, you immediately notice that Childe have way better AoE, while Barbara, because it is auto targeted, does not have any AoE except on the charge attack, which costs way too much stamina to actually properly use. And this is the first problem with KOKOMI, no AoE. And we know how character with no AoE can go, for example, looking at you, Yomiya. KOKOMI elemental skill is Baki Kulage. It will summon a jellyfish fan for you and do damage and apply hydro to enemy every single 2 seconds. It will also heal you for a good amount. Here you can see it heal for 3000 every single 2 seconds. Now the first thing that I see is the energy generation. It looked like the chances of you generating energy is 50-50. For example, this hit did not generate energy here, and when it did, it only generated 1 energy. So that means KOKOMI might have potentially some very serious energy issues. Your jellyfish friend will last for 12 seconds with a cooldown of 20 seconds, but do know that casting your elemental burst will refresh the duration of your jellyfish. So what you could do is just do the jellyfish and then do your elemental burst and immediately leave your elemental burst to refresh your jellyfish and then cast your jellyfish and so on, so on, so on. This means that effectively, you can have 100% uptime on your jellyfish, and you can have 100% uptime on applying the hydro and the healing as well. This is a really good aspect about Kokomi. The jellyfish have an okay scaling at 200% at level 10, very similar to the Goba and the Oz. But however, because the jellyfish cannot crit, since Kokomi cannot crit, her damage is going to be significantly hurt because of that, and therefore the damage on the jellyfish is not going to be very high. Kokomi Elemental Burst will put you into Jesus form, where your normal charge attack and elemental skill will now do damage based on your maximum HP. It will also restore a good amount of HP for your entire party every time you hit a normal attack or charge attack on your enemy. Now, because of the complexity of the way Kokomi scale differently, I went ahead and did some very basic math. I have to clarify it's very basic. However, you can see that here during her Elemental Burst, you can actually do about 5,000 damage per normal attack, and your elemental skill can do like 4,000 damage or something like that. Unfortunately, outside of your elemental burst, your elemental skill does no damage. It only does for 1,100 something damage. Nevertheless, these damage amount are actually very good. These damage amount are actually very promising. Keep in mind that it is true that you cannot crit, but she get a lot of bonus from her elemental burst that it make up for it anyway. So you will just be hitting like 5,000 every single hit. You won't have any variance at all. You won't crit and see like a 10,000, but you won't not crit and then see like a lower number. You always hit for 5,000. And once again, this damage number is honestly very promising, in my opinion, at the very least. And the math calculation here is done with the Furring Tail Dragon Slayer book, which can give your party member a huge amount of attack bonus. And even with this book, you can still do a really good amount of damage. It's because, again, this book have HP% substat, which is exactly what Kokomi scale really well with, and therefore this book is absolutely perfect on her. Despite not being able to crit, your damage is honestly gonna be fine on Kokomi, even if you run the Dragon Slayer book, which give your party member a huge amount of attack bonus. And the fact that she is a healer does not necessarily mean she is bad. We have other characters who are also healer but are very good, simply because the other stuff they provide can make up for it. Diona is a very good crowd healer because she provides you a shield and she provides you with a lot of crowd energy. Bennett is the most insane healer in the game because he provides you a lot of attack. Jean is a really good healer as well because he is a Nemo and she can do the VV shred and she can do 4 damage abuse to do a bunch of damage. Overall, just because you're a healer doesn't mean you're bad. On top of that, as mentioned earlier, her jellyfish have very good uptime. It has 100% uptime and is able to consistently apply your hydro. In comparison, Barbara and Childe doesn't have any off-field hydro application at all. I mean, Barbara does, but it's very unreliable. Mona hydro application is not 100% uptime, and if you put Mona into team like Morgana, you'll notice that the enemy is gonna unfreeze because Mona doesn't keep up with the hydro. And while Xingqiu can keep up with the hydro, Xingqiu's hydro application is not AoE, and Xingqiu is way too valuable. So the fact that if you can have a second Xingqiu is honestly not bad. Despite all of that, Kokomi is just not really good because she cannot properly replace anyone in any of the current meta team, or at least it comes as a big cost. First of all, Kokomi cannot replace Xingqiu in any Pyro DPS team, simply because her application is most likely too slow to properly keep up. In fact, the only character who can keep up is like Xingqiu, because Xingqiu apply way faster than anyone else. Kokomi applying once every 2 seconds is not gonna cut it. So therefore, Pyro DPS is not gonna take Kokomi at all. Pyro DPS are still gonna want Xingqiu, and Xingqiu is irreplaceable here. Now the Kokomi can easily be put into the Morgana team. Kokomi Jellyfish once again have 100% uptime, which means you can permafreeze really easily with Ganyu Elemental Burst very easily. The problem is, can Kokomi replace Mona? And currently, I don't think so. Likewise, Mona can bring the Dragon Slayer book, which gives you a lot of attack percent similar to how Kokomi can bring the book. But on top of that, Mona have the biggest selling point, which is Omen. This Omen gives your entire party, namely both Ganyu and Venti, a lot of damage. And most importantly is that even though it's a 5-second duration here, you can actually make this a 10-second duration because of the way the Omen extension works. And therefore, the amount of damage you gain on Mona is gonna be a lot in comparison to anything that you can possibly get on KOKOMI, even though you will have better freeze up time. Because of that, it is most likely not worth replacing Mona with KOKOMI, but this is something we have to playtest about, because again, KOKOMI do have better freeze up time. In fact, Ayaka instead of Ganyu is gonna like Mona way more than KOKOMI, because all of damage are bundled into her elemental burst. Ayaka would much rather have the damage bonus buff that you get from the Mona Omen rather than the sustained Hydro application you get from KOKOMI. Because of that, Mona is gonna be way better than KOKOMI in terms of Morgana team, most likely at the very least. But what about the Morgana version? This team is very well known for not having a healer. And in this team, you do a lot of damage because you put both Ganyu and Ayaka in, and in the current 2.1 patch, we also got Ally for free, so that means you could substitute Ally for Ayaka or Ganyu if you don't have both of them. So in this case, maybe KOKOMI would be really appreciated because you don't have a healer and KOKOMI fit that role really well. But once again, we have to ask, is it better than Mona? Potentially, Mona with a prototype Ember instead of a Dragon Slayer book. Mona with a prototype Ember can heal your party, and it does work really well since you don't take that much damage in a freeze team. But of course, you trade the Dragon Slayer book for it, so you gain stuff here and you lose stuff here. It's like plus or minus. There's no clear winner if Mona is better here or if KOKOMI is better here. More or less, this is a very competitive option to put KOKOMI in. But the problem is that, is it worth rolling $200 for KOKOMI just to replace Mona in this one specific party? Questionable at the very moment. Plus, if you don't want a healer, which, you know, healer is not always required, that Mona is always going to be better. Just to call that real quick, so far the team that we talked about play KOKOMI as a jellyfish bot. That means you just cast a jellyfish and then you leave. You don't care about the entire gimmick that you get damage on your normal attack during your elemental burst. The reason is because Ganyu attacking on the field or Ayaka attacking on the field is just gonna be way better, so it's almost never worth to do KOKOMI on field when you have these party members. It's basically the same issue of Raiden all over again. It's just not worth putting her in the field unless you have to. But what about party like Xiangling, where you have a deployable and you can use KOKOMI on the field to apply a lot of Hydro? Now this is something you can do, and it does again work really well. The only question is that, would you do this or would you just put Childe in? The number one problem in this party is that you already have Bennett as a healer, so there's no reason to put a second healer into your party. Although I have to say, with two healer and the fact that KOKOMI heal your entire party and she heal you when you're attacking, and the fact that she get interrupt resistant during her elemental burst will make your gameplay a lot more comfortable. You'll basically be entering Jesus mode when you play. You cannot die when you play this team. But the biggest trade-off is, of course, you lose damage in comparison to putting Childe in. When compared to KOKOMI, Childe is of course gonna do way more damage, especially in his AoE. Childe have way better AoE than KOKOMI does. In fact, Childe have one of the best AoE in the game, because his Riptide is quadratic scaling, which means the more enemy there are, the more damage you would do. And at this point, the question we have to ask, and I want everyone to think about this, is, let's suppose KOKOMI only did 10% less damage than if you would put the Childe in here instead. But of course, KOKOMI have a lot more benefits, such as being able to play in Jesus mode and having a lot of healing. Would you take that trade-off? Would you trade 10% of your damage to put in KOKOMI to get the healing? Some people might say yes, some people might say no, because some people will value the 10% damage gain a lot more, especially since Abyss is a speedrun game. But what about 20%? What about 30%? What about 40%? Would you trade 40% of your damage to put KOKOMI in for the purpose of gaining healing? And once again, this is gonna be a very hard question, although I imagine a lot of people would say no. Once again, because Abyss is a speedrun timer, you are racing against the clock. So 40% damage is a big trade-off to gain a healer, and I don't think a lot of people would do it. How much damage is the actual difference between KOKOMI and Childe? That we have to figure it out when she is released and we do the math. But for now, I think this is the interesting question that to take home to think about. At what percentage price point, how much damage are you willing to pay to trade for a healer? Some people might not be willing to pay any damage at all to trade for a healer. So that's something to think about. Likewise, the Tazer team is a very strong 4-star team. However, it does use sync shields in this team, which a lot of other party can also appreciate. On top of that, this team is also well known for not having healer. So putting KOKOMI in here could be a very good replacement. And once again, we arrive at the same question that I have to ask you. Obviously, KOKOMI probably do a lot less damage than Xingqiu since Xingqiu is such a powerhouse. So once again, how much damage are you willing to pay to trade for a healer? Would you pay 20% damage loss in this party to gain a healer, which increase your overall consistency by a lot? Would you pay 30% of your damage? Would you pay 40% of your damage? Once again, these questions are something to think about even after she come out. Maybe you can even replace the Sugro here with something like a Sayu or with a Kazuya. So now you just play KOKOMI on the field the entire time and you heal your entire party, and maybe you don't even suffer that much damage loss. In this case, KOKOMI could be a very good replacement to put into the party. Likewise, maybe you can put KOKOMI into a freeze team with deployable like Kaya and Rosaria and just do KOKOMI on field attack, and then now you have a freeze team, some kind of KOKOMI freeze team. But the thing is, Barbara could potentially work just as well, and Barbara can also carry the book, so once again, it's not like you're losing that much. So here is the second and the final question I want to ask. Would you pay $200 to upgrade your Barbara? How much of an upgrade does KOKOMI have to be over the Barbara for you to pay $200 to upgrade her? Some people would never pay that $200. Some people would say it has to be a lot better for you to upgrade her. These are questions that only you can answer as they differ from person to person. What's really holding KOKOMI back is the following two questions. One, if KOKOMI is just an upgraded Barbara, would you pay $200 to upgrade your Barbara? Two, even if KOKOMI is an upgraded Barbara and heal you for a lot, but it comes at the cost of losing damage because other Hydro character can just give you more damage, how much damage are you willing to trade for a healer? And some people would say never. Some people would never trade any damage to put in a healer because the game is about speed running a timer. You're facing against a 3-minute clock. So if you cannot beat the 3-minute clock, trading in more damage that doesn't make sense. But if you could beat the clock in a minute or 30 seconds already, then you can think about trading damage for some survivability or for some healing. So that is gonna be answers differ from person to person, but ultimately I don't think a lot of people would actually be willing to trade a lot of damage for healing. Ultimately though, KOKOMI is not a dysfunctional character like Chi-Chi. It's just that the thing she provides the most is healing, and not a lot of people care about healing because Genshin Impact or healing as a stat is simply not the greatest one. And because of that, I'm actually gonna put KOKOMI as 2 out of 5. Which means she could be useful if you really care about healing, but for every single person who don't care about healing, she's gonna be useless. That being said, it's gonna be exciting to see where KOKOMI turn out. Maybe they will make some kind of things that require healing, and at that point, you will be willing to trade damage for healing, and at that point, KOKOMI will become good. But at the current moment of Genshin Impact, healing is not really a thing that's strictly required. And so that's what really holding KOKOMI back. I hope to see you guys next time as well. Thanks for watching as always. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you all next time.